Good evening. Back for round 3. So with this tackle talk, I kind of had an idea this week to do something a little different because I haven't used a ton of the footage that Ben and Brian and I filmed with this spring, and watching their videos, I don't think they used some of this footage either, which is totally fine. But I thought it would be really cool to run down a tackle talk with some of the lures that we used on that trip, as I'm kind of editing and working on that footage now, but utilizing the underwater footage that Ben shot and just kind of putting it out there, you know, with the lures that we use regularly, and just having a different perspective. Obviously, like, there's tons of underwater stuff that Glenn McDonald does, and that's super cool. I'm not trying to like take anything away from Glenn, but offering kind of a different perspective on some of the underwater stuff as well. So I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know what it's going to look like, but please let me know in the comments if this was a good way to present these baits in kind of a way that I don't normally do it. If not, then I mean, we won't have to do it again, but if it is, then I guess I'll just have to like make the pile of baits by Ben bigger next season while he's doing the underwater stuff. It's okay, because like he caught a fish, filmed all the underwater stuff, and then he caught another fish. So don't feel bad for Ben or feel like that he was missing out on anything while he shot the underwater while I sat in the 2-hole riding the struggle bus. But I digress. Let's dive in. Let's talk about some different baits here. So the first one that I have, as I'm trying to follow my list here, because I had to like go in and look at what baits we used in what order, but the first one is the Navin from Chaos Tackle. And you will see kind of a recurring theme with some of these baits. This is not the color Ben was using and crushing on out of the 3 spot behind me, but you'll see a recurring theme where the body roll and belly kind of roll of these baits, I think definitely is key and does more things to these fish in the way that they react than I think a lot of us really realize. I know that from watching this footage back and watching the baits that were so effective for us, or have been effective for me throughout the spring and summer, they all share this perspective on body roll, and like, you know, they have kind of this wiggle action and they go back and they kind of come, you know, come back to center and go back and forth, and they have this roll to them that not a ton of, not all baits do, but it turns out a lot of the really effective ones do. Okay, so the next one on the list is the trusty Dusty Deusa. This one has several fish on it. I wouldn't even be able to tell you how many fish this one has. This is like the original Eagle mini Deusa that I have just been crushing on with since I like tied this thing on it. It goes with me everywhere in the spring because it looks like a spawning crappie. This is not the one in the film. The footage has, I believe it's a nuclear crappie. But again, it's really interesting to watch that underwater because these tails here move far more than I think anyone really realizes when they're just like working the bait, do a figure 8 or whatever. Like, those tails are all over the place. They're doing crazy things, and you can see that even as Ben is just kind of working that bait with that leader, it's still really cutting back and forth and doing a lot of different things down there that not every plastic lure does or rubber lure does. So next on the list we've got the Topline Big Eye. This is not the one that is being used. That one is in my box presently because it just doesn't leave at this point. And especially Connor last week caught an absolute monstrosity of a fish in Minnesota on a 7-inch twitch. So like a 7-inch twitch should just, I guess, always be in your box regardless of what time of year it is. But again, you see the body roll and kind of the belly flash of that lure. You know, gold will make the muskies fold, as Taylor says. And, you know, that bait has just a really unique action for a twitch, as it just kind of dips and it rolls and it settles, and it dips and it rolls and it settles, and you know, it just kind of suspends there. It doesn't really like float up super fast like you have some twitches do, but again, that suspension I think is key to getting some of those bites, especially in some of those cooler water temps. That being said, another one that is really good with the body roll and the action and just kind of coaxing fish into biting, regardless of the time of the year, is the Ridgway Custom. So this is another twitch. It does kind of a different thing, which is why I like to include it. This is the swirly tail one. The one in the video is my 6-inch that I had a lot of success with this year. And just, it always got fish moving, whether it was here or in Canada or Wisconsin. I believe that thing caught me several pike that are now sitting in my fridge, pickled. Thank you, Barry. So I mean, these baits just catch tons of fish. But again, you can see in that underwater, you've got the body roll and the action of that bait just kind of cutting back and forth and finding its center, which is not something, again, that all twitch baits do. You have a lot of twitch baits that just kind of flutter down and kick back up and flutter down and kick back up. And sometimes that's what the fish want. But I prefer much louder, much more kind of back and forth presentations that are a little bit more obnoxious. Speaking of which, we've got the 6 sucker. This is a Rusty's Custom. This one is the 8-inch, but in the video it's the 6-inch. And that thing has been chewed more times than I don't even know. I don't know how many fish Brian has on his 6-inch. My 6-inch has been fortunate to get chewed a couple times. It's a great bait, but you can see how much action that dangle blade off the back end is really putting out there through the underwater. And it just kind of flutters and it goes and it just does some weird squeaky things down there that like not a lot of glides do, and not a lot of baits do specifically. So with that said, we're going to kind of roll that into the 6-inch fortune teller, which I don't have in front of me. Again, it's in my box. It doesn't leave it at this point. That 6-inch fortune teller has kind of the same thing. It hangs, it suspends, it is effortless to work, and that tail just kind of does its own thing back there. And that tail, I don't know what it does. Brian doesn't know what it does, but there's some sort of mojo to that tail, and you can kind of see it in the underwater that not a lot of baits have. And it clearly works to draw those fish in, and it clearly works to, you know, get those fish interested and make things happen. Last but certainly not least is the 6-inch Bucko. I've had some luck with these in the past. You know, this is the one that was on the camera. Again, it's late fall. This one is not in my box anymore. I've got his 10-incher in my box right now, so I just kind of have upsized as fall has progressed. But again, you can see that this one is just kind of all over the place down there. You know, it's dipping, it's diving, it's rolling, it's cutting. It's very easy to see why those baits are effective. And when they're moving that much water and they're kind of all over the place, it's easy to see why they're drawing those fish in. But that's really all of the underwater that we filmed that day. Several different baits, a lot of different presentations. Very clearly, like the pull pause thing was working and working very well for us, whether it was dive and rise or twitches or glides or rubber. They wanted something that was kind of starting and stopping in front of them for whatever reason that trip. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this kind of different perspective on the tackle talk. If you did, please let me know. If you want me to do more underwater stuff, I'll try and carve out some time for that next spring with Ben and Brian. Yeah, because they're the experts. They know a lot more about this than I do. But if you appreciate the way that I kind of cut in that footage, please let me know. Please let the bait makers know, because like their stuff is what is being shown. It's awesome. So anyway, I'm starting to ramble. We're 3 tackle talks deep at this point. Thank you all for watching. If you don't mind, consider subscribing. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.